Since it's a round table and we have the honor to be joined by such distinguished speakers, I will not take up the time of the panel. What is the beginning of this discussion is the big picture. The world, zooming into Europe, zooming into Greece. These three tiers that we try every year in the masterclass here at Delphi to keep a close eye on for trends, challenges, and ultimately opportunities that arise even at the times of the higher disruption. So I think we are in times of, let's say, a new global reality. Uncertainty is definitely there. In the superpower, the changes are already showing the rippling effects. And I think that with Tom and Howard, we will zoom in a bit on what changes on the level of geopolitics, how it affects defense, and not in a short lens, but a wider one, how this catalyzes changes in technology, in business, in finance, the markets, and at the bottom line, each and every one of us here in the room. Without further ado, with your permission, Tom, defense in such a complicated sphere seems to be having its moment, and RSM seems to have insights on that as well.
Yeah, I think the key question, I think, facing Europe is really, if not now, then when? You know, I think another panelist yesterday made this point that I really liked, and it was basically Europe, and when I'm talking about Europe, I'm the EU and Britain, because I think it makes sense to talk about them combined in this context, essentially outsourced energy to Russia, defense to the US, and growth to China. None of those three assumptions apply anymore. So, you know, if not now, when? We are on the precipice, I think, of a fundamental reordering of how at least the Europe economy has to work. We need to see much greater domestic consumption, primarily coming from Germany, much greater reliance on European defence industry to be able to, I guess, stave off Russian aggression. And we need to be able to have a much greater focus on either diversity of energy supplies or domestically produced energy supplies. So I think traditionally what you've seen is actually quite difficult to use defence spending as a real driver for economic growth, because what you find is you actually just end up importing quite a lot. Or if you employ more people in the army, you employ less people in private industry. This time, I think, is different for Europe. And that's really because we're not just talking about rearming Europe. We are talking about making Europe more independent from the US. And it was really, I think, reassuring to hear that actually, you know, on that day-to-day level, you know, the US military isn't backing off so great. But there is a very, very clear push for Europe to do more, to be more independent. Tariffs are part of that barrier. So that means not just importing more military from the US, it means building those capacities essentially from the ground up. So we are talking about an enormous surge in investment, not just in manufacturing capability, but things like tech. All of the kind of new autonomous weapons that Howard was talking about earlier, this is essentially a brand new industry. I mean, we look at what's happening in Ukraine, it's a new industry. This is going to have to essentially be, in a lot of ways, built from the ground up. That provides, or potentially provides, an enormous economic tailwind for the next decade or so. You look at the spending plans in Germany, that alone probably adds 1-2% a year of GDP over the next 10 years. That's a big, powerful headwind. It provides enormous opportunities, I think, for private businesses. We already see lots and lots of interest in defence firms, from everything from kind of private equity, venture capital, new startups. This is going to be one of the, I think, industries of the future. It obviously comes with challenges. One of them being, how do we pay for this? Germany is in the relatively fortunate, nice situation where they can afford to borrow vast sums to invest and spend for this. No other European country is really in that position. So we are in the position, I think, certainly in the UK, France, other countries, at higher taxes or lower spending elsewhere. These are very, very difficult political decisions. we've been through some relatively minor shifts in the UK that have caused enormous political backlash. So I think one of the key questions Europe as a society is facing is going to be the unwinding of this peace dividend and how we then fund this increase in defence spending, which has the capacity to be transformational, especially for European manufacturing. So I think I'll leave it there if we want to do some Q&A.
And I would like also a first comment from Alex, speaking about sustainability and all this discussion about the ESG sector and how the technology is affecting this. Alex, a first comment.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me here today. And, just to pick up on the theme of maybe the interaction of AI, advanced technology, and sustainability, and the broader green transition, which, in the midst of all of this disruption that we're seeing around the world today, has taken a back seat at the corporate agenda, has sort of fallen down the priority list, despite the fact that, the World Economic Forum in their latest risk rating report suggested over the next 10 years that climate, environmental related risks rank 4 out of the top 5 of the top 10 related risks. So, but just to pick up on the theme of how AI, like one of the trends that I was quite heartened to see, quite happy to see, was the amount of spending in the U.S. in particular that is going towards smart grid technologies to bring more and more intermittent energy sources, solar, wind, into national grids on a more effective basis. And critically, like AI technology, IoT, some very basic technology by today's standards, frankly, is increasingly being used to facilitate some of these objectives. And I mean, on the panel yesterday that I was on, I mentioned a couple statistics. Like last year was the first year ever in the United States where renewable energy sources, wind, solar, biofuels, overtook coal generation. So, I mean, lots changed. A lot more, of course, does need to be changed. And companies are going to have to continue to keep the momentum on this agenda. And again, I am also happy to see that a lot of companies have, increasingly integrated climate-related risks into their risk management functions, using some really advanced, powerful AI platforms and tools to automate their sustainability reporting, to get ahead of supply chain disruptions, and the like. And I think this is, I think this is quite critical. And I'll also say that they're not necessarily doing this to, to achieve broader, to facilitate some of their sustainability reporting. One of the reasons why they're doing this, and I have seen, I would say, a change in the discussion at the corporate level, at the board level, with many of our clients, that they're doing this because it's good for their business. And I think this is what the future of sustainability has to be. There needs to be a much greater link between a company's sustainability initiatives and that link back to value creation. And that link back to value creation can come in many ways, of course. Getting ahead of key risks, supply chain related disruptions are just 2 out of several. So I know a lot more progress has to be made, of course, but we are, of course, definitely moving in the right direction. And where I know AI, of course, can in some cases, there's obviously a big narrative of how AI can, of course, impair some of our broader energy objectives. But AI can also be used as a platform and a tool to do things like bring more intermittent energy sources online, can be used as a tool to improve efficiency, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's, I'm happy to report, that's where we're seeing a lot with our clients. That's where the conversation is clearly going, and it's going to need to go there to keep this on the corporate agenda, especially in the short term, given some of the disruptions that we've just talked about.
Turning to our most powerful women in the room, I will start with the co-host in many ways, Έλενα Στυλιανού. Then I'll pass to Evi and Vasiliki Kavaleratou and Evi Bukhori-Yoruda. heading GY. And then I will continue with the men. I have identified another three. Harry, I know you're a gentleman. Harry Daoudis, the chief of Max Media Group, will be patient for our most powerful women, and then he will jump in immediately after that with his hard data.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you. I'm going to make a very quick comment because I don't want to take time from the excellent discussion that we're having here. And thank you all for all the insights you've shared with us. I just want to say it's a real pleasure for us to be here, to be partnering with Fortune in the CEO Masterclass here as part of the CEO Initiative. I think it's one of the most sought out side events every year of the forum. So congratulations to you for that. As RSM, we're here because we really believe in the power of dialogue, especially amongst leaders, and may I add, across continents as well. And this is why, essentially now we have to come together, because as we were saying, the challenges in Europe and the world today, defense, macroeconomic effects, ESG, technology, require informed and forward-thinking collaboration. And this is why we've come to Delphi as a global team. We're 7 member firms here from 7 countries across the globe, representing the 120 countries that make up the RSM network. So please reach out to our experts because they're here to really, really take part in many discussions. And of course, we have here Alex from Canada and Tom from the UK, partners and experts in their topics, sharing their insight on what we think are very, very critical topics. And lastly, I'd like to say that as RSM, we really, really stand for instilling confidence in a world of change. And I think that now that tagline that we have, that motto, is more relevant than ever. We're living in a world of change, and I think it's really important that we shape resilient, responsible business communities for the future. So supporting forums like this really reflects our belief in the importance of cross-border thinking and proactive leadership. So thank you very much for having us here, and we're very happy to be a part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena, and also for this partnership for the Masterclass and all the partners of the CEO Initiative.
Thanks so much,
very much,
all of you.